Hello, hope you're doing great. This is Maria Pannirajan, your friendly software engineer. And in this video, we're going to talk about variables in C++. So in a previous video, we discussed in depth about data types, right? And now we understand that the data types such as int, char, float, double, and so on are just, labels to help us as engineers and also the C++ compiler understand how many bytes of memory it is supposed to allocate in the RAM. Right? So that's what it is. And today, as we are talking about variables, data types become even more relevant because in C++, data types play an integral role in the syntax that is used to create variables. In C++, as we discussed in the previous video, the data type of a variable is explicit. All right. We need to explicitly mention that, the variable that we are creating is of a particular data type. And there are some opportunities in C++ to convert from one data type to another. But as we discussed in the previous video, we need to be really conscious of those conversions. So now let's see the syntax that is used to create a variable in C++. All right. So we have a Visual Studio IDE solution open in front of us and let's create a variable. All right. So the syntax to create a variable inside of C++ is first we need to mention the data type we want our variable to be in. All right. So that, like the C++ compiler can allocate the memory for us. So let's create a variable of the data type char. All right, because this is the smallest data type that is available to us. It's just 1 byte of memory, right? So this first part of the syntax is the data type name, right? Now, the second part is basically going to be the variable's name. Okay, so the second part of the variable syntax is the actual variable name. Okay, so let's just give it a name favorite number. All right, so it could be just any name. We're just giving this variable the name favorite number, and then we use the assignment operator, the equal to operator, to assign a value to this variable. All right, so let's just assign the value 5. So this basically is the syntax for creating a variable inside of C++. All right, so what is happening over here is, we have basically allocated 1 byte of memory in the RAM, and the location where that 1 byte of memory is allocated in your RAM stick, right? So, that 1 byte of memory is residing in your RAM, right? And that location, right, like the place where that 1 byte is allocated has an address, right? So only then we will be able to put some value into that location and even access it. So there is a location where this 1 byte of memory is allocated, and usually that location is represented by means of a hexadecimal number. And for ease of use, right, like instead of using all these hexadecimal memory addresses to put and access values into the bytes, what we as human beings are using are these variable names. Okay, these labels. So basically the C++ compiler keeps some kind of a table which converts this label to that respect to hexadecimal number, which is basically the location of your 1 byte of memory in your RAM stick. Okay, so basically that's what's happening under the hood. And this number 5, which is right now a decimal number, is converted into its binary form and stored in this location, which is represented by this label favorite number, which again is just representing that location, right? So this number 5 is converted into this binary representation and saved in the location in your RAM memory, which is represented by this label favorite number. And we know that the location, this favorite number has memory which is of the size 1 byte, because we know that this variable is of the data type char. So basically this is the syntax that we can use to create a variable inside of C++. Okay, so since we have stored this value 5 in this variable with the label favorite number, we can also print it out into the terminal. Okay, let's just do that now. Okay, so let's just say std cout. Std cout is a standard a print a command that is available to us in C++, which we can use to print things to the terminal. Okay, so we are just using that for our use. So std cout, and then we can just use 2 lesser than operators and give the name of the variable favorite number to be printed on the screen, and we'll end the cout stream with an endl, so that it just returns to the next line. Okay, so basically in this line we are storing this value 5 into memory, right? And we have this label, right? So using that label, in this line, we're just printing that value onto the terminal. Okay, so let's see how this is working. Now we can just compile and run this, and let's see if our number 5 is getting printed on the screen. what is happening here? So basically what is right now happening is, like since, like we have, like set the data type to be char, right? CHAR, like char is, like just 1 byte, and usually using the ASCII table conversion, it is used to represent the English alphabets and the symbols that are present in the ASCII table. So basically that's what's happening over here. Like since this variable is of the data type char, automatically, C++ compiler just, assumed that we want the ASCII representation for this number 5. So that's basically what's happening. So, so for us to actually get the number, all we need to do is just, typecast, this char data type to back it to an integer. Like in this way, we are just, using 1 byte of memory in the RAM. But then when we are printing that, a char variable to the terminal, we just, tell the compiler that, yes, this variable is of the data type char, but still, we want it just as an integer. We don't want to print the ASCII representation of, the number 5, but, we just want to print the number 5 by itself. By means of adding this int inside of this parenthesis, we are basically asking the C++ compiler to convert the, value that is present inside of this variable into an integer and print that into the terminal. All right. So now let's compile and, run this application and see if the number 5 is getting printed onto the terminal. And just as expected, yes, so we have got our number 5 printed on the terminal. So, basically this is really cool, right? So we've actually started, making use of the memory, right? We are manipulating the values in the memory, right? Because, by means of the simple one line, right? Like by means of using this variable, we have actually put this, value into memory, and then, we are also able to print it out into the terminal. So yes, this was a quick introduction into the world of variables in C++. I hope this video was useful, and I will see you again in another video. Cheers!